the ultimate trek to being an isolationist? In other words, very inward, very I don't use the word self-centered, that's kind of...
This is an interesting issue, and actually Buddhism we get onto some differences between different Buddhist traditions here. Some Buddhists would say that all Buddhists would agree that when you've transformed your mind, or that transforming your mind is your first important goal. Some Buddhists would say that when you've done that, you then, operating from a position of altruism, kindness and wisdom, you work to help others. This is a dispute within the Buddhist tradition. Either way, my own view here is that Buddhism finally becomes what I call a form of subjectivism. In other words, finally, its main concern, almost its total concern, is with my own mind. And therefore, Buddhism has no interest in God. It's only interested in one's own mind, one's own mental transformation. And to that extent, Buddhism, of course, is utterly different from Christianity. And there's something that I think can illustrate this quite well. If it turned out, it's not true, but supposing it did turn out to be true, that there was only my own mind in existence, supposing there was just only my own mind, as a Buddhist, I could still attain my goal. But for a Christian, of course, that would be quite impossible, because the goal of Christianity is not your own mind. The goal of Christianity is God, and God is utterly different from your own mind. God is nothing to do with your own subjective mental states. God has nothing to do with funny inner feelings. God is God. And also, in Christian terms, the goal is a communal thing. The goal is to do with the community of the church, the community of the saved, in the light of God. And this is utterly different from Buddhism.
What does Buddhism do with an afterlife?
Oh, Buddhists believe in an afterlife. Buddhists believe that there is reincarnation. And broadly speaking, therefore, when you die, you are reborn somewhere else. I mean, it's a very complicated matter.
Sure, I understand.
But
from a simplistic standpoint,
Buddhists believe in reincarnation. Incidentally, there's something that follows that's important there that people don't always realise, and that is that if reincarnation is true, then the actual person you are now in this life ceases to be very important, because you will have many more incarnations. There again, this is one reason why I think that no Orthodox Christian can possibly believe in reincarnation. Because from a Christian point of view, the person you are is infinitely valuable. And so I know there are some Christians who seem to believe in reincarnation, but it cannot be.
Yeah. So in a sense, reincarnation, you're focused on my life, and then there's a next life, and
Yes.
So we're looking to the future. And we presume that I came from someone else, but does Buddhism deal with where this all started?
Yeah. The Buddhist tradition says that there was never a beginning. Going backwards, your previous incarnations are infinite.
Get away from the need for a creator.
Exactly. Your previous incarnations are infinite. Going backwards. Into the future, they may or may not be infinite, depending on whether you attain the goal of enlightenment, the cessation of greed, hatred and delusion. At which point, if you do, incarnations end.
Is that a good thing in Buddhism?
Well, Buddhists certainly think it's a jolly good thing, yes.
Okay, to stop this chain
yes.
of...
Oh, yes. That
so
is
they
the goal.
believe
yes.
being connected in this life is a negative.
Being in this life is finally, from a Buddhist point of view, negative, yeah. I mean, this again is a little bit complicated, but I think all Buddhists would agree that in some sense or another, this world we're in now is not wanted.
See, the reason I wanted to go into this to a certain extent, because I know that, like you and I talked earlier, if we get too far into this, now we're into what you teach, and it can become very convoluted.
We don't want
to go there.
You don't want a university lecture.
But we know that we have folk that are watching who either have delved into this or who've lost family, friends, and children who've been drawn into this. And you mentioned earlier that there was this draw because of the peacefulness of it.
Yes.
And you can attain and have a discipline of religious life without a God to whom we are accountable.
Yes.
I mean, that is a very interesting slant to this.
I think you've put that absolutely right. I mean, I think that modern Westerners, young people, and not so young people like me, I think find Buddhism attractive, first of all, because it does away with various problematic things like God. Secondly, because they like Buddhist meditation, which gives one a feeling of calm, a feeling of gentleness, of tranquility. And they also are influenced by the statement that's often made, although it's a little bit misleading, but often made, that there's never been any wars or any violence associated with Buddhism. So what modern Westerners like, on the one hand, they like the fact it gets rid of various problems, it gets rid of God and so on. On the other hand, they also like the fact that it gives them wonderful, tranquil, calm feelings, feelings of harmony, feelings of love, feelings of kindness, and that sort of thing. And you can understand why people like that. What on earth that has got to do with the final purpose of our existence is another thing altogether. Bring God into this and everything changes.
That's right.
And that's what happened to me.
Okay, well, here you are a professor in this, and I would say respected in your field.
I jolly well hope so.
I'm not looking for to pat yourself on the back, but the point being, for our audience, is that you were recognized as to a certain authority, but not only authority on some other religion, but one that was your own, and very much a part of it. Yeah. Your students recognize that. Your family?
Yes. Oh, my family are most amusing in this. My daughter was actually brought up a Buddhist. She's the youngest. She's now 23. My two older boys were brought up without any religion. My wife was brought up as a Welsh Baptist, but she doesn't practice. She sees looking after me and my strange religious proclivities as being a sort of an occupational hazard, really, I think. She says she's got quite enough to deal with looking after me without religion as well. But what was nice was that when I was going through the conversion process, my family my brothers, my daughter and so on, would come up and ask me questions. And I would think about those questions and then write down my replies. And eventually that became another book. A good example of this is my daughter, who said to me, when I first told her that I was going to become a Catholic, I told her on telephone, she said, Dad, but you have to have faith to be a Catholic.
Interesting.
Please God, I do. And then she said, the next thing she said, she came to see me and she said, Dad, I think Buddhism is better than Catholicism. And why? And she said, well, because it gives our cat a chance through reincarnation. Because Buddhists believe that cats die and can be reincarnated as human beings. So that gave rise to a lot of thoughts, and my book on the subject has a section called Can Wensleydale Be Saved? Wensleydale is one of our cats. I should say for your North American viewers that Wensleydale is also the name of a British cheese.
Well, here you are in, like I said, recognized, published, and all the family, and you're gone this trajectory. And I suppose the first stage of your trajectory then as a Buddhist is, what is it that first got you to believe, your daughter saying, well, you have to have faith to believe in God?
Yes,
what made you that first hurdle?
Well, I think we've touched on some of these things, actually. I mean, Buddhists consider, and the Buddhist position is that we're in a state of suffering. There are various things you can do to overcome it. There are certain fundamental questions that Buddhists simply don't ask. Or rather, they don't even consider they're important. Like, for example, and this is the question that was so important to me, why is there anything at all? Buddhists hold that there are things, and there are various laws, the famous law of karma, for example. If you do a wicked deed, a horrible thing will happen to you in the future. What Buddhists never actually answer is, why is it like that? Why are there things at all? This question actually comes from Aquinas, from St. Thomas Aquinas. And for me, that question became... there's a Buddhist term for this in Zen. It's a koan. It's a question which, is there anything at all? Not why is there this table? Presumably some carpenter made it, or why are there these books? Or presumably your parents had something to do with making you and me. But not that. But why is it that there are things? Why is there anything at all? And no Buddhist tradition ever even asks that question, let alone answers it. And for me, and this is a very personal thing, for me, I don't think everyone needs to ask that question. Well, it would be good if they did, but for me, that question became almost like an itch that wouldn't go away. Why is there anything? Why is there anything at all? And if you ask yourself that question, you either have to say there is no answer, which is what Buddhists say, and we don't even need to ask it, or you have to say there is an answer, and the answer there is to that question has to be something that fits with the definition of God. It has to be something about which you cannot then ask, why is there that? No one can ask. Actually, this occurs in Buddhist work sometimes. Buddhists actually say those who believe in God need to ask themselves the following question. If God is the cause of everything, what's the cause of God? Well, the answer to that is that they've completely misunderstood what God is. God is precisely the being for whom you cannot ask that question. So what the Buddhists can do is say there is no answer to the question, but if you do answer the question and you say there is God, the Buddhists cannot say back, and why is there God? That simply makes no sense.
This is funny.